Growing up in a family is like signing a contract for support, love, and honesty. At least that's what I've always thought. But sometimes your family is just people who have the same DNA as you, but not values, not upbringing, and certainly not kindness. Especially when it comes to people like my cousin Catherine. Since childhood, she has been a shadow behind my back. Not my best friend, not my enemy. Shadow. They were constantly comparing us, school, grades, appearance, achievements. And no matter how hard I tried to stay away, she always managed to be around. Against her will, her mother, my aunt, constantly pushed her towards me. Look at your cousin, learn from her, why can't you be like her? And Catherine hated me for it. And I understood her. I was only a year older, but the difference felt like a chasm. I've always been quiet and introverted, but I've been good at learning. She doesn't. I wasn't a cover beauty, but I was told that I had a good appearance. She was teased for her teenage acne. I didn't like hanging out, but I had friends. She doesn't. And instead of trying to become a better person, she decided it was easier to hate. When we were teenagers, we only saw each other on family holidays. I thought she would grow up, cool down. We'll both start living our own lives. But it turned out that for some people, envy is like poison that they drink for years, hoping that someone else will die. Years have passed. I went to university. Catherine also enrolled somewhere, but dropped out in her sophomore year. Our paths have finally parted. I rarely saw her, at most pictures on social networks. Bathroom selfies, wine stories, tags like #bossbabe, #queen, but without a real job and without real friends. I met Tom in my 3rd year. You know, when they talk about a healthy relationship, I used to think it was something boring because there was no drama. But Tom was just like that. He didn't arrange games, he didn't disappear for a week, he didn't make me jealous on purpose. He just was. And he was for me. We moved in together a year later. His parents adored him. My friends said we were jealous of white envy. Even my mother, who is always careful with strangers, said, "You can't go wrong with that." And somewhere along the way, Catherine came back into our lives. First, through Instagram likes. Then there are random comments under our photos. Then she, accidentally, texted me, "Oh, I saw you live nearby. How cool." I even thought then, well, you never know, maybe I've really grown up, become smarter. Stupid. We met for coffee. And it was weird. She was sitting across from me with her hair perfectly coiffed, in a dress that cost half my salary, and she was constantly fiddling with something in her hands, first a spoon, then a phone, then a spoon again. The look is like that of a cat that pretends to be domestic, but is actually ready to bite your throat. She asked me about my work and my plans. Then about Tom. Too much about Tom. What are his hobbies? And how did you meet? And where does he work? I didn't realize at the time that it was an interrogation, not a friendly conversation. I'm a fool, I spilled everything. She even showed me a picture. She pretended to laugh and said, "Wow, you're lucky." But the eyes weren't laughing. A month later, a strange thing began. Tom started receiving some strange messages in Yandex, direct. "Oh, sorry, I got my accounts mixed up." Then there are the left calls. Then there were invitations to meetings from some girls he didn't know. And do you know who subscribed to all these pages? Right. Catherine. But I didn't put it into the picture then. I thought it was a coincidence. The world is small. The internet is weird. It wasn't until later that I realized that there are no coincidences when Catherine is around. The day I found out everything, I'll remember it forever. I was sitting at home, collecting reports for work, when there was a knock on the door. I'm opening it, Catherine. She was wearing a short dress, heels, and a hairstyle as if she were going to a ball, and with such an expression on his face as if he had come to borrow salt. She smiled. "Oh, hello." I was nearby. I thought I'd look in. I froze. "Is Tom at home?" she said casually. And that's when finally something clicked in my head. But that was just the beginning. I couldn't even imagine how far she was willing to go in order to ruin my life. After that conversation, I tried to stay away from my sister. Everything inside me was boiling with anger, but I was too stunned and depressed to engage in an open confrontation with her. It was like a bad dream that I couldn't wake up from. My own sister, the person with whom I shared a house, toys, and childhood secrets, did such a mean thing to me. And she didn't even feel any guilt. But no matter how hard I tried to shut myself down and get through it alone, the truth, as always, found a way out. At first it was the little things. I began to notice strange looks from friends, a slight tension in the correspondence. Someone stopped responding to messages, someone suddenly became cold and distant. At first I thought it was paranoia. Maybe I'm just imagining it? Maybe it's my nerves? But one day my friend, whom I've been friends with since high school, sent me screenshots. And then everything became clear. My sister started a real harassment. She wrote long posts on social networks, left comments under photos of mutual friends, pretended to be warning me in a friendly way, but in fact she poured dirt. Everything was planned. In her stories, I wasn't just a bad sister, I was a real monster. She told me how I always humiliated her in front of friends, how I bullied her in everything, even at school. And most importantly, she wrote that I always took all the guys away from her, and that the story with my boyfriend is just another proof of how mean I am. The most disgusting thing was that she made it look like she was taking care of me. Like, I just couldn't stand watching her ruin her life with this guy anymore, so I decided to open up. And she signed everything with the words, "Better a terrible end than horror without end." And do you know what the most disgusting thing is? They believed her. She always knew how to say the right words at the right moment. I'm the opposite. When I get hurt, I shut down. I'm silent. I'm putting up with it. And she's doing the show. People love the show. One of our mutual friends even wrote to me, "Honestly, I always suspected that you had some kind of score to settle with your sister. I didn't think you could do that." I was shaking with injustice. And then there was a call from my mom. Mom was upset. Not even angry, but upset. And it was worse. "I do not know what to think," she said. I read what she wrote. "Why haven't you been able to get along since childhood?" I tried to explain. I told her how I helped her, how I paid for her studies, how I always pulled her out of debt. I reminded her of how my sister used to cry into my vest after every heartbreak. Why doesn't she talk about it? Why doesn't she tell you how much you've helped her? Mom asked. Because then her story won't be so beautiful. I snapped. She's making me look like an enemy because it's so profitable. But Mom just sighed. You're both adults. Figure it out for yourself. That was the worst part. I was left alone. One against a sister who could play with words, one against the silent condemnation of acquaintances, one even in front of her own mother. And of course, the guy. He disappeared. As soon as the scandal gained momentum, he stopped contacting. I found out from third parties that he is now dating my sister. Their photos began to appear in friends' stories. They defiantly walked by the hand to places where we had been together before. It was like a knife through the heart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to find them both and spill the truth right in their faces. But what would it do? People love drama, but they love believing in beautiful fairy tales even more. And the tale of how my younger sister freed me from a bad relationship was perfect. She looked like a heroine. And I'm an envious, hysterical woman. And the more I was silent, the more this role became fixed for me. But do you know what happens when a silent person decides to speak? I started collecting evidence. Not for others, but for yourself. To remember that I'm not who they want me to be. Correspondence, old messages, money transfers, screenshots of conversations where my sister complained about her life and asked for support. I even found messages where she wrote directly, "Sometimes I feel like you've always been better than me. Everything was easier for you. Even love." I wrote a post. Long, honest, without dirt. There were no insults. Just the facts. Dates, numbers, and messages. I posted it and turned off my phone. I didn't want to see the first reactions. I didn't want to shake from every comment. But the next day, when I turned on my phone, it was literally bursting with notifications. Comments, messages, personal appeals, reposts. Someone wrote, "We always guessed." Someone was apologizing for believing her words. Someone bluntly stated that everything was clear now. And the sister. She was trying to get out of it. She wrote new posts, accused me of manipulation, said I was making her look like a psychopath. But the more she talked, the more confused she became. And then she turned to her last weapon, her mother. She called her and burst into tears. "Mom, she's trying to destroy me on purpose. She knows how hard it is for me." But this time, Mom didn't say anything. And I realized that even her eyes were starting to open. That was just the beginning. I still didn't know what was ahead of me. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had my life in my hands. And the final chapter was waiting ahead. The chapter where everything falls into place. A chapter where truth and karma go hand in hand. After my post went viral, the situation started to change. Not immediately, of course. At first, there was still the sticky shadow of distrust hanging around me. People were doubtful. Many simply did not want to take sides. But everything changed after one event that I will remember for the rest of my life. My sister has always been overconfident. She's used to everyone forgiving her for any antics. Friends, family, even teachers at school turned a blind eye to her manipulations. Apparently, she decided that everything would end the same way now, that she would be pitted, supported, and vindicated again. But this time fate decided to play it differently. One morning, I got a call from the same school friend who was the first to send me screenshots of bullying. "Did you see that?" "What is it?" she asked without even saying hello. "What is it?" She posted a video. My heart sank. I opened my phone and saw a live broadcast hosted by my sister. Tears, smudged mascara, shaky voice. A classic of a cheap play. "I can't be silent anymore," she sobbed. "Everyone is bullying me. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Yes, I may have done something wrong, but you don't understand what it's like to live in the shadow of an ideal sister." And then she made a fatal mistake. In a fit of emotion, wanting to evoke even more sympathy, she began to talk about how she had long been jealous of me, how she always wanted to be in my place, and how she specially met with my boyfriend to feel like a winner for once. It was a confession, in front of hundreds of spectators. At first, there was silence in the chat, and then the real squall began. The people who had been justifying her yesterday were now furious. "So you arranged all this yourself? You betrayed your own sister for what? To feel better. But you wrote that she humiliated you. And now it turns out that it's the other way around." My sister tried to explain something, tried to get out of it, accused me of having brought her to such a state. But the more she talked, the deeper she buried herself. People love shows, but they love revelations even more. And it was a sight that no one could tear themselves away from. After that stream, my sister's reputation was destroyed. Even those who had previously supported her began to block her. Mutual friends wrote me private messages with apologies. Someone openly stated that they no longer wanted to have anything to do with her. And the guy? Oh, his story deserves a special mention. It turned out that my sister had not only ruined our relationship, but also owed him a lot of money. She borrowed from him for urgent needs, although she spent on clothes, cosmetics, and parties. And when he realized that he was involved in a dirty story, he also decided to make a statement. "I'm not perfect," he wrote on his page. "But I would never have started a relationship with my girlfriend's sister if it weren't for constant manipulation and pressure. It was a mistake, and I am ready to repay all debts. But I don't want to have anything to do with this family anymore." "Mom?" She called me a few days later. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I really didn't see what she was like. I always thought she was just weaker than you, that she needed help. But now I understand that weakness and meanness are not the same thing." It was the first time in a long time that I burst into tears. But they were tears of relief. My sister tried to keep fighting, but the further she went, the more people turned away from her. All her words were perceived as lies. No one believed in her fairy tales anymore. What about me? I didn't gloat. I didn't write nasty things back. I just moved on with my life. I signed up for courses, changed my job, and moved into a new apartment. The people who stayed by my side were real. The rest have eliminated themselves. Karma did not come immediately, but she came, and she came beautifully. Now every time it seems to me that the world is unfair, I remember this story. And I'm smiling, because I know that the truth will always find a way, even if at first it seems that no one hears you. And sometimes the best thing is to just do your job in silence, and life itself will put everything in its place.